This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Mondays around this time, we appreciate having Mike Irwin with us here on Halftime from Pig Trail Nation, talking all things Razorbacks. Mike, March Madness is upon us. What do you think of Arkansas's draw?
Pretty much what I expected. They've been talking about either an 8 or 9 seed, and of course what happens when you do that is if you win that first game, you're going to face the number one team in the region. So they're going to go if they beat a 9 seed, then they got to beat a 1 seed. Now compare that to the last 2 years. 2 years ago, first team they played was a 14 seed, then they played a 6 seed, then 2 years ago, last year it was a 13 seed and a 12 seed. So you see the challenge just to get beyond the round of 32 this time is much more difficult than it was before.
So we talk about the opponents of Arkansas and their strengths and their weaknesses. You know, we always do that leading up to a game. How much of this has to do with just this team themselves, you know, and what we've seen from Arkansas men's basketball over the course of this season, which has been a team that is inconsistent, not just on a game-by-game basis, but in 10-minute bursts, inconsistent, 20-minute halves, inconsistent. Is there something that you see that maybe they could draw a little bit of consistency in the tournament? Because, I mean, you understand the game is about runs. Basketball, college basketball is about runs and trying to limit your opponents and get your own going. The Hogs have had a little trouble, you know, limiting those opponents' runs and have just been consistently inconsistent. And I just don't know if I see that stopping for right now.
Well, that's been the subject of a lot of questions I've gotten for this week's Ask Mike. And there are a couple of different groups of thoughts from different fans, but one of them would be Muss needs to play more players in this game. He's wearing his guys out. They're getting tired late in games. He's only played 6, 7 guys. Illinois is Brad Underwood. If you go back and look at what he's done this year, most of the time he's playing 8, sometimes 9 games. So the advice I get from these fans is you gotta play more players. Well, I don't think you can get to this point in the season and start playing some freshmen that generally don't play just so you don't get your other guys tired. And I'm not sure that's really what the issue is. Okay, then the next school of thought, and this is more interesting. Guy emails me and says, look at Devo Davis's listed weight when he posted when he was a freshman, 180. When he was a sophomore, it's still 180. This year it's 185. So he's gained 5 pounds in 3 years. Something's wrong with the strength coach, the strength program. It's the same problem the football team had. This team is getting pushed around by physical teams like Tennessee, teams like A&M. They're not physical enough. Well, if this guy is correct, you're not going to solve that problem for the NCAA tournament. You just need to do something about it in the off season. I'm not saying either one of those things aren't a factor, but what I said last week I still believe is true. When you are an AAU guy, a stud, since the 6th or 7th grade, you've been used to winning games and being athletic, and people tell you how good you are. Then you make the transition to the college level. You can't always just do your thing. You gotta. There's coaches there for a reason. If you could just win games without coaches, we wouldn't have coaches. Save a lot of money. So you got coaches there for a reason. I don't think the guys on this team are intentionally ignoring Musselman, but I think they fall back on what they always have done. And so you see them start off in the first half, and they're playing really good defense, and they're getting blocked shots, and they're not giving up second chance points, and the other team's missing shots. They're all over the place. They're active, and then at some point they get tired, and that stops. On the other end of the floor, they're working it inside. They're being patient, using the shot clock, getting layups and dunks. Get into the second half. Don't feel like doing that as much. Hey, I can make this jump shot. Against A&M, Arkansas had a 13-point lead 2 or 3 minutes into the second half, and I can tell you when this happened. Ricky Council came down on the right side, dribbled into a crowd of three guys, was kind of trapped, and instead of passing the ball off, he did a 360 spin and tried to hit a fall-away jump shot. He didn't come close. They grabbed that ball, went down, made a layup, got fouled. 13-point lead is 10, and it went south from there. Everybody else started doing their own thing. And to me, people have said to me, it's Musselman, he's not coaching. Baloney, he didn't turn into a guy who can't coach in 1 year. It's the guys on this team are not as coachable as the guys they had before. You don't have those mature guys. You don't have a Jalen Williams out there, a Mude, some of those guys, Justin Smith, that they've had in the past. That, you know, these guys were mature. They followed the game plan. I don't think they're doing that. Now, can they still turn it around? Yeah, if they get refocused. If they understand you can't stop in the middle of the second half and go back to what you want to do. But we'll see if it works. I don't know.
You think that a little bit of this is with the expectations that we thought maybe we were better? Back-to-back Elite Eights, we kind of thought maybe we were going to be better than what we were?
Well, I think the players on this team this year know what has happened the last 2 years, and then they're logical enough to say, hey, we have more actual talent on this team than those teams. So, sure, we can do that. And they may have that attitude now. And if they play fundamental basketball the way those other two teams played fundamental basketball, there's no reason they can't do what those teams did. There is more talent on this team. They just can't do their own thing at some point in the game. When you do that, that's when you go backwards. It's no deep, dark secret who the Final Four team and why the Final Four teams in the SEC tournament were who they were. One of those teams was superior, Alabama, but the other three didn't have great talent. How did they get there? How did Vanderbilt get there? How did A&M get there? You know, how did those teams get to where they were? Because they followed coaching. They were coachable players. And I see this over and over again in basketball where a more talented team gets beat.
So that opens up a conversation to have maybe in just a couple of minutes about the future of the program and where you're looking and how you can find out whether somebody is coachable or not. But right now, this team is what they are, and they're playing Thursday against Illinois. And, you know, I mean, I think fans would be disappointed if you don't at least win a game. Maybe make it to the Sweet 16, because, you know, March is what the season is based upon, whether it's been successful or not. So, I mean, what are you expecting now? I mean, because if they play well against Illinois, you'd be like, all right, well, it's been tough for them to put two really good games together, and then facing a defending national champion in Kansas. You know, I don't know what to expect. I really don't, because they got the talent, like everybody knows, to go and win 3-4 games. But that's obviously not what it's all about, just like you're talking about. So, I mean, what expectations do you have for this week?
Well, Illinois is a team very similar to Arkansas. They played their best basketball in non-conference play. I mean, in November, they knocked off UCLA. They were 4th or 5th in the country at that time. Then they beat Texas, who was number 2, in a December game. Their fans have to be really disappointed right now, because they went into Big 12 or Big 10 play thinking, wow, we got us a team. And then it just didn't happen for them. And they were a lot like Arkansas. They'd have a really big win, and then the next game is, what is that all about? And they finished a little bit of a slump. Maybe not quite as bad as what Arkansas did, but they're on a downer right now. The two teams are a little bit dissimilar in the way they play. They go with more of a 2-guard, 3-forward lineup, and those forwards are like 6'9", 6'9", 6'10". So this is an issue for Arkansas. They have trouble with physical teams like that. But, you know, you got to play fundamental basketball. You got to do what you did against A&M in the first half.
Mike, I was impressed a little bit with Mikal Mitchell, and then the way Jordan Walsh attacked the rims and tried to get some rebounds. So I did see our bigs play a little bit better against Auburn.
Absolutely.
And A&M. Yeah, and hopefully they can continue that.
They, especially Mikal Mitchell, he played a heck of a game. He kept playing even when the others stopped. What basically happened in that A&M game was Nick Smith Jr. just couldn't hit a shot. That shocked me. He kept shooting and he kept missing. I don't know what that was. It's not fatigue. I think he just had an off game, and hopefully he won't do that. I mean, he's a real key. He's got to play well. He's got to score 15, 20 points.
He's still not ready, Mike. He's still. You can see him out there breathing hard, and his skin changing colors. He's just not in game shape, man. When everybody's been playing all year and he's played 7 games, it's just tough to get there. Yeah,
sure. I mean, that's certainly an issue, and I think Musselman has tried to send him to the bench and let him rest. You know, be knowledgeable of that. But there are times when they just need him out there, and I think he says, God, we got to put him back out there. We got to score right here. But there are other people that have complained that when teams make these runs that Musselman should call timeout and chew them out and point out, hey, you're getting off script here. And he doesn't call timeout a lot. I think he calls timeout for specific reasons, and that isn't a reason. Maybe his attitude is, hey, if these guys can't figure this out by now, I'm not sure what I can say to change their mind. I don't know. I'm not in his head while this is going on. But the issue, guys, is you can win this first game. What happens after that? Because you got to turn around 2 days later and probably play a team that's as good as anybody you've played on your schedule, and it's going to be a pro-Kansas environment because they're 2.5 hours from their campus. So what do you do then? I looked over at their schedule. If you look at common opponents, Baylor beat Kansas by 6 in Waco, and Arkansas came within 3. So that ought to be a little bit encouraging. They also just got curb stomped. I'm talking Kansas by TCU, an unexplainable loss. I mean, got beat badly. So maybe Kansas plays one of those games. I don't know. They are going to have their coach back, so that won't be the issue that maybe it was against Texas in the Big 12 tournament. But I think Kansas is somewhat vulnerable. They're not a team where you look at them and say, well, they can't be beat. But you got to play really well, and you're probably going to have to get some help from them. They're probably going to have to overlook you a little bit.
Mike, I want to revisit a little bit about the idea of you know, the AAU mentality. Maybe, you know, guys being a little difficult to coach because they just revert to things that they did before, which is just kind of be allowed to rely on their talent. Coaches will tell you that the coaching so often is also about building relationships, but there's the relationship you build with somebody when you're recruiting them, and that's off the court. And then there's the relationship that you got to build with them when they're on the team and you're coaching them and you're expecting them to respond to your coaching. I think Muss is a great coach. I think we've seen that at Arkansas and at Nevada. And even just listening to him talk about the game and his ideas and philosophies, I think he's a brilliant coach. But not every brilliant coach connects to every team that they have on an annual basis. And it sounds like this team maybe just hasn't responded to him the way that other teams have. Do you think, I mean, they've got 5-star All-Americans coming in, Blocker, Fall. They're still recruiting kids like that out of high school. But do you think Muss is just more of a coach that is built to coach older players, transfer portal guys that have been around 3 or 4 years, like a Jalen Tate, like a Stanley Amude? Or is this just maybe a one-off thing this year?
Well, I don't know, but I do think that when you're dealing with that much young talent, John McDonald had that same issue years ago, and I was talking to him about it, but he was successful. He constantly was bringing in new guys, and they would start off maybe a little rough, but by the end of the year, they were where they should be. And what he told me was, you can't always coach that guy when he's first here. But you know who can coach him? His older teammates. And I think that's, again, why Alabama is more successful than Arkansas. They've got those 5-star guys just like Arkansas. They're surrounded by a bunch of veteran Alabama players that have been there. And when they start getting out of line, those guys step in and say, hey, coach knows what he's doing. Stop this. You do this. John said that always worked. And he told me a story about a really talented guy that his seniors came about halfway through the guy's freshman year and said, we want him off the team. He's not coachable. He won't listen to us. He's not listening to you. We want him gone. And John said, I got rid of him. I believed in them because they were the senior leaders I wanted. And I think coaches always have to have that. I don't care what sport you're talking about. You got to have some juniors and seniors that the freshmen will look up to in ways that they might not connect with the head coach.
BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from the NFL and bowl season to esports. You'll find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. We're the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. BetOnline, where the game starts.